Fantasy football season is heating up with NFL team training camps finally getting started. Tonight is July 21st, and we'll be giving smaller leagues a fair mock. Tonight is a 10-team, one-quarterback PPR redraft mock. Coming to you live on Optimus Fantasy, this is Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. Ladies, gentlemen, and all those in between and outside of it, welcome to Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan, right here on Optimus Fantasy, coming to you every Monday evening until week 1 of the NFL season. I am your host, Evan Sather. Tonight, I have a well-respected writer joining me as my guest. He writes various articles for the Football Guys, such as Player Outlook and Waiver Wire Recommendations. Please welcome to the show, Jeff Blaylock. Jeff, how are you tonight, my friend?
Hey, I'm great, Evan. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I used to be a more active member of the Football Guys Discord server. I'm still there now. I pop in from time to time. I'm just busier now compared to last year. But I remember you coming up here and there, and I didn't realize that last year you had just joined the team. How many months have you been with the Football Guys now?
So I joined in November, so late in the season last year with a cadre of fellow rookies, and we have been.
Sorry about that.
All right. Finding our little lanes that we want to be in. I think one of the great things about Football Guys, out of many, is that they look for the talent that they think will be good contributors to the Football Guys community as well as the product, and then let us sort of develop into whatever role we're going to play as we work toward it. So I tend to go into the dynasty space. And it's funny you mentioned Discord because, of course, we have Jeff Bell, very respected gentleman in the dynasty space. And as you remember, Evan, when you type in Discord, it shows your first name and last initial. So I will be typing in there and it will say Jeff B is typing. And then I'll post and people will be disappointed that it wasn't Jeff Bell. So I have taken on the name the other Jeff B just so I can be distinguished from him.
Yeah, I remember you popped in for a few AMAs here and there in the season whenever you could get to them, and that seems to be the majority of what you cover on the website, whether it's Dynasty articles or redraft articles. So I just wanted to pull this up on the website real quick as you're off to a running head start on a lot of these articles, and you just posted one about 8 days ago about Kyren Williams. I don't know if I necessarily want to click on anything to spoil it, if to have people check it out, but so do you have a sneak peek on what you talk about with players such as Kyren Williams, Jalen Hurts, Shadur Sanders, and so on?
Well, I'd say with certainly with Kyren and with Jalen Hurts. So those are big spotlights that we do for players during the offseason for primarily our redraft managers. And what we try to do is take sort of a statistical deep dive into what we think may happen, looking back at history, comparing them with other players. So for Hurts, one of the main themes was, and at the time I was writing that, the tush-push argument was going on, and we weren't sure whether it would pass or fail. So there are actually two different versions of that story. So I was ready for whatever happened. But I wanted to indicate that he is much more than just a guy who gets his rear end shoved for 1 yard touchdowns. There's a lot more that he could do, and he's got a lot more value than just that. And then even if the tush push had gone away, he remains an elite running threat. And I think he's a much better passer than he's given credit for. He just simply hasn't had to do it very much. The team's so successful at running the ball, they don't need him to air it out. And in the late third, fourth quarters, he doesn't have to throw the ball at all. With Kyren Williams, I was really interested in the workload patterns that he had under Sean McVay, his head coach and offensive play caller. McVay has had a tendency in the past to use workhorse running backs at very high touch levels relative to everyone else. I think a lot of folks in the industry, including myself before I was in the industry, thought that Blake Corum would be playing more of a role last season than he did. It ended up being the Kyren Williams show almost exclusively. And so I wanted to look back at some of the other running backs that McVay has had, such as Todd Gurley and other high usage backs. And the historical correlation is that year 3 of such usage is not anywhere near as good as years 1 and 2. And so that article sets that up. And then I had a Twitter thread last week where I went into the other 8 running backs that I am fading this year for redraft, specifically because of these high volume usage issues that I'm seeing.
Yeah, those are all excellent topics to cover as well. And the one thing I was telling you before the show got started, Kyren Williams was that one running back that I made the mistake of selling 2 seasons ago after he had his first breakout year when he was finally healthy, showing the NFL why he's capable of being a starting running back. I was worried that with his size based on his height and weight, that guys built like him don't tend to last long in the NFL. So I'm like, oh, I know, I'll sell him high. I got Travis Etienne back in the package deal when I sent away Kyren. And then Travis Etienne spent a whole season with like 3 different injuries he was trying to play through. So who's the idiot? Me. But, you just have to take these chances in Dynasty sometimes if you're looking to win. So, ladies and gentlemen, so footballguys.com/articles, and then you can pull Jeff Blaylock's name in the drop-down list right there. That's where you'll easily see all of his articles. So be sure to check that out after the show. So we're getting some questions pouring in here. Nate Paulvote pointed out that he drafted with you on Saturday. Vince Mapstone is dying to know how Denver Live went. So let's pull this tab up here and how your Scott Fishbowl draft is going. So your pick is not coming up for another 3 picks. You started pretty running back rich right now with Achane as your first pick, followed up with Jefferson on the turnaround, Chase Brown on the 3rd round reversal, and so on. So you got 4 solid running backs, 4 solid wide receivers. I love the Khalil Shakir pick. Justin Herbert is your first quarterback, maybe soon to be a second quarterback, but I'll let you take it from here, Jeff. How do you like your draft so far? And I won't make you spoil what else you're going to do, but how do you like your draft so far?
It's good because I don't know what else I'm going to do, so there isn't much to spoil there. I am a big believer in the strategy of letting the draft come to me, and as the 12, that's really the only option you have. And I noticed coming into my first picks that the only 3 quarterbacks I was going to consider really taking had already come off the board. The only tight end I was even remotely considering taking early had come off the board, but the receivers really hadn't. So my thought was to load up on running backs with high volume because I think the scoring system favors those, and then get a hero wide receiver for that top of my lineup there. So that's what led me into Achane and Justin Jefferson. Then Chase Brown, to me, was a terrific pick at 301 among the other running backs who are left. You can see that I believe that's Breece Hall. I have my glasses on for TV vanity. I believe that's Breece Hall and Alvin Kamara and Kyren Williams, who were the next 3. And so I prefer Brown to all 3 of those for some of those for the usage reasons, some just simply for the offense. The Cincinnati offense is better than the Jets offense is. And then the DeAndre Swift pick at the next turn, that was as much a volume play for me as it was to snipe my friend Dave Kluge, who I figured would take him, and his pick came up a few later. That turned out to be correct. At least that's what he says, what he told me today. So we'll just treat that as my snipe. And then I may regret the Justin Herbert pick there. I actually hadn't intended on taking a quarterback at all in this stretch, but I was playing with the idea of McCarthy because I had Jefferson. I thought, well, maybe I could pair these guys up and stack them. But I got sniped right before I had that opportunity and somehow still put my finger on a quarterback. So we'll see if I end up liking this Herbert pick or not. I don't know at this moment.
I do like your start a lot so far. I'm out on Chase Brown for repeating his RB10 performance, but you have your faith in Chase Brown that I will not question. And if I turn out to be wrong, then you will be a genius in my eyes.
Well, one of the great things about this industry is we're right a lot and we're wrong a lot, and there's a mushy middle in between, and hopefully we're right more often and a lot more often than we are wrong.
Ain't that the truth? It takes a while to get good at this, for sure. So I love this draft so far. I'm looking forward to hearing more about how the rest of your team turns out. Unfortunately, tonight is a 10-team redraft PPR mock draft tonight, as we're past the Scott Fishbowl mocks. Trying to give some smaller leagues the love that they deserve. So it's pretty simple. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, 1 defense/special teams, and 1 kicker. So easy peasy. I don't know how many of you listening to this play in a lot of 10-team leagues, but I've gotten some requests for this as well, so I figured this would be good for people that are looking to mock in this format, myself included. I actually have a home league that has this mock, so anybody listening from my home league watching tonight, well, this is a nice little guide for you as well. So, Jeff,
same with one of mine.
Yours is too.
Same with one of my home leagues in this exact same format. So hopefully they aren't watching either.
That's the thing. It's like, I love these like smaller 10-team leagues that, sometimes 12 feels like too much, just depending on how many spots you have to fill, how many people you know that you trust to play, and so on. I think it's nice to play in smaller leagues. I think sometimes they take too much crap.
I agree.
So, with that being said, Jeff, I'm about to click the start draft button. Are you ready, my friend?
Let's go. Let's see how I handle a 30-second clock when every other draft I've got going on is on an 8-hour clock at the moment. There's a little bit of a time difference there. We'll see what happens. See how many panic picks I actually get to make here on the turn.
Yes. So we've got Dubois 222 up, which is Kevin from the Devi Royale. So I'm happy that he joined us this evening for this. We'll see if he's here ready to make the pick, though. It doesn't look like he's online yet, but that's okay. So with 10 seconds remaining, it's probably going to go either Jamar Chase or Saquon Barkley for this format. We'll wait for 3, 2, 1, and there it is. It's Justin Jefferson. I don't know if that's a part of Sleeper's random algorithm or whatnot, but so Jeff, that begs the question. If somebody goes Justin Jefferson at the 101 in a 10-team league, that's not a bad thing, is it?
No, I don't think so. Especially if I remember the lineup stacking right. You have to start 3 wide receivers, correct?
Just 2.
Oh, just 2. Okay, yeah. Certainly in a 3 wide receiver start league, I want to load up on receivers early here. So to me, Jefferson's one of the top 3 wide receivers in the group, and I think he's a perfectly good pick there in that first spot. We do have some questions about his quarterback relative to, say, Joe Burrow. I mean, McCarthy's still kind of an unknown. It's basically his rookie season. But I have faith in Jefferson's ability to catch whatever comes his general direction, and so I think that's a great pick by the computer there. So we'll give Kevin credit for it, even though I think the computer got it.
I don't hate that pick either. And for the record, in case anybody is challenging my Bears fandom, despite the fact that I'm wearing a purple t-shirt, this is a Powerline t-shirt from the movie A Goofy Movie. So you'll never catch me wearing any Vikings gear. And if you do, it means I lost a bet. So we have some running backs and Jamar Chase going off the board. Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley. So Saquon Barkley is the 3rd running back off the board here. Jeff, I'm reading a lot of people being less and less inclined to take Saquon, and for a myriad of reasons, whether it's just because of the Madden cover curse or whether it's just because they're scared he's not going to repeat a 2,000-yard season again. But if Saquon Barkley rushes for like 1,200 yards this season, are you going to be mad about that?
I would be if I took him with my high first-round pick. I think I'm going to want a more production than that. Out of that selection. I think if he has a top 12, an RB1 finish, but in the lower part of that, and you spent the 3rd pick in the draft on him, you really need more than that and are looking for more than that. I don't think it has to be a sort of cratering like Christian McCaffrey at the 101 was last year to put you behind the 8 ball. But I think, you really need this first round pick to hit pretty well, especially picking early when you don't have a second pick up. At least here it's 10 teams, so you get a little faster than if it were 12. But if you're picking 3rd and your next pick is, say, 21st, you really need that 3rd pick to hit.
See, I've never really worried about my first-round picks like that. A lot of people in the fantasy football world definitely do. As you're making this next pick, I'll just keep going here. So yep. I'm not a believer in feeling like your season is over just because your first round pick either got injured or just doesn't hit, because you still got to draft a complete team. And I don't like to give up on my teams like that. I know a lot of people like to get down on that. Do you agree with my sentiment on that? And if you do, what would you say on top of that?
I think, first of all, get your guy. I mean, that to me is the number one thing. This is still supposed to be a lot of fun. We want to root for our teams and we want to root for our guys. So let's make sure we get who it is we want to cheer for. And so in your case, I would expect you to not draft a Viking, but maybe you will. I don't know. For me, you see there, I went with the 2 receivers right off the bat. I just like those 2 in combination. I was considering Malik Neighbors too. I see Fanta picked him up. I just am a little more concerned about quarterback issues there than I am in Houston and LA. And so that's why, to me, Neighbors was the one I passed on out of those.
Gosh, I never have seen a mock draft where we have 3 auto drafts. We're hoping that folks realize that it got started and join us pretty soon, but it also makes it interesting because maybe you've got a home league where you have at least one guy or other person that forgets the draft time, and they end up having to join later, or they just have a terrible connection wherever they're drafting, and one of their picks gets auto-drafted. So that's not necessarily a bad thing for the sake of this draft.
No, actually, it adds a bit of randomness to it too, that you don't necessarily see. That a real human might not do something that the computer might do, and that there are obviously going to be people in a lot of our home leagues that kind of are following something other than following their own drummer, as it is when it comes to their selections and how they're valuing players.
Totally. Lou Brunson pointed out the best song from a Goofy movie, which is my t-shirt tonight, in case you missed that part, just because we happen to mention the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm wearing that purple shirt with Powerline on it. And as much as I'm tempted to sing the lyrics, I don't think you all want to hear me sing tonight. That's kind of not why we're here, so I'll spare the audience. Rafi69 Bomb brings up with Saquon Barkley, the Madden curse, guessing a 25% regression, having a ton of volume that most guys don't get after a good season afterwards. Rafi will pass and regret it later if need be. That just sounds like a conservative approach, in my opinion. I don't think I necessarily agree with that, because Saquon is showing no signs of slowing down, similar to Derrick Henry. Are you seeing anything different out of Saquon, Jeff?
So I'm concerned about the high volume usage. I mean, he has had the most touches in the last 2 years of any running back. That's 770 between the regular season and the postseason. And that is, hang on one second while I panic pick my next two picks, and I will pick that right back up.
I'm just glad I didn't have you here when I had 10-second timers.
Me too, actually. Let's go with him.
I like this. We're going wide receiver strong to kick things off, and followed up with Jalen Hurts. I like that a lot. So just to review your first 4 rounds so far, Jeff: Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Jackson Smith-Njigba, followed up by Jalen Hurts. So no running backs, no tight ends yet. If this were a real league, would you be happy with these selections so far?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm treating this as though this is a team I'd have to go into battle with. I will later on, as we get later down and start panic picking, be grateful that I don't have to live with the mistakes that I'm making. But I do like these picks that I've made so far relative to who's on the board. I'm not inclined to go after a tight end at this level. I did for about 2 seconds consider Kittle, because I think he's going to overachieve and be the wide receiver 1 essentially for the San Francisco 49ers this year. But I opted to just lock in, my running quarterback and high scoring quarterback. And even though this is a 1 QB league, I don't mind paying a premium for Hurts in the 4th round. I don't know that I'd want to pay for him in the 2nd round or 1st round. Definitely not the 1st round.
I love your take on George Kittle as well, because I'm very high on him as well. I got him late in my Scott Fishbowl draft too. I'm thrilled to have him. It's just a shame that I traded him away in my Dynasty League, but that was years ago as well. And that was during a time when Kittle was seeing less volume, and Kyle Shanahan is weird enough with his offenses as it is, so I was kind of shying away from the Shanahan offense. But Kittle's looking mighty fine for his ADP and how late he's going in a lot of drafts as well. I'd be happy to grab Kittle in the 4th round the way that Brian did at picking from the 9th spot. So Lou Brunson also asks, are there any things you like to keep in mind in a 10-team shallow league versus a 12-team deeper league? Not specific players necessarily, but more overarching philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that after about 5 or 6 rounds, you've got an entire round worth of players that didn't get selected that you would see in a 12-team league. And so I think it gives you more options. And so I think it gives you more of an opportunity to pass on somebody that you maybe don't want to pay as much for. Perhaps you like somebody else better because the next 1 or 2 players at that position that are available are more likely to get to you in a 10-team league than in a 12. It may not be a whole lot of difference there, but I do think that these what I'll call shallower leagues, because of the number of teams in them, I do think there's a bit of an ability to not pay for somebody and still get somebody comparable in a way that is a little harder at 12, and certainly a lot harder when you start getting into the 14-team level.
I've played in a 14-team redraft league before, and Jeff, I got to tell you, that was not so fun. That just feels like too many guys to me. But if it's a specialty league where there's the league is fun enough to be in, then yeah, I'll tolerate it. But it gets really difficult depending on how the league is set up with 14 teams, because it just feels like that the waiver wire is barren and you have to reach on guys that, like a wide receiver 3 that might have like an Alec Pierce boom week and you're thrilled to have him, but you can't start him safely.
Yeah, or you're in a Superflex 14-team league and you're reaching on Sam Darnold because otherwise you're not going to have a second quarterback to play.
Ain't that the truth?
I'm not speaking from experience, although of course I certainly am. I've already done that this season.
Gosh, yeah, I have not. So have you drafted anything for your redraft leagues? I've never really known a lot of people that will go early in redraft, where the only redraft league I'm in this year that's a home league is not till August 31st.
Yeah, I believe that all of my what I'd call regular leagues that are redraft will draft later in August, as probably as late down the line and in preseason as we can, and still make sure we get the draft in. I think the only team I would consider redraft is Scott Fishbowl at league that's going on right now. But I do think that I do know of some of the redraft leagues that do get started earlier, and I think that just from a sitting here as folks are in the industry, we're paying enough attention to what's going on in the league that we could do those kinds of drafts this early. But I think for more casual players, waiting till later, I think is a better approach, because some folks are just not yet tuned into football, and nor should they be, because there isn't any on TV yet.
Yeah, that's very true. I've yet to meet anybody that does a redraft draft in July and means it seriously. I would imagine that's a lot more commitment and work to do it that early, where you have to pay attention to the waiver wire after the draft and have to keep up with training camps. That's just a lot of work for the casual leagues.
Yeah, I would suspect that a lot of leagues that are like that have players who are also in dynasty leagues, and so thus they at least some of them or many of them are paying attention, which may be a competitive advantage over their league mates who perhaps are not in dynasty leagues and not paying as much attention.
So Rafi69 Bomb also mentioned that he was playing that strategy hoping Devontae Adams fell back to him, but that gamble did not work. That does happen. You know, you will have a lot of guys that will snipe you. Lord of Fanta sniped Garrett Wilson from me, and if this was a real league, I would be mad about that. But you know, being that it's a mock draft, it's like, well, you know, I can take a chance on other players I normally wouldn't draft anymore, like a Tyreek Hill. Speaking of Tyreek Hill, the Miami Dolphins offense looked really atrocious last season, where nobody except Achane looked good in that offense, and Achane was playing through a bum ankle. Yeah. What do you see for the Miami Dolphins this year? And they don't have Jonnu Smith anymore after he got traded to go be with Arthur Smith again in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And now they just traded for Darren Waller from the New York Giants to replace Jonnu Smith. What do you think about the Dolphins this year from a fantasy outlook?
Well, I certainly hope that Tua Tagovailoa is able to avoid any further concussions and stay healthy. Personally, just for him personally, first and foremost. I mean, these are real human beings. No matter how we think about them in terms of dynasty assets on our teams, they're real people, and I want them to be healthy and to succeed.
That part.
But now that I've said that about Tua and his health and the health of everyone else on the team, if they don't have Tua playing full time, I don't see them being able to be a very competitive offense. I do think they had a lot of injuries and a lot of bad luck last year, and that hopefully will balance itself back out this season. Hopefully Tyreek Hill doesn't get arrested. Hopefully, Waddle comes back to his play that we are used to seeing. Hopefully the lines stay healthy. I think this offense can find its mojo again. And if it does, I think Tyreek Hill is a great pick here in round 4 because he can still put up monster seasons if he's got a quarterback that is consistently able to get him the ball.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of Mike Macdonald as a head coach. I think he did a terrible job rallying the team when the injuries were happening, and they just did not look motivated at all last season, and they were losing big games to AFC East opponents like the New York Jets, for crying out loud. Like, I didn't understand the Dolphins last year and just why they were struggling so much, when on paper, this is a team that is way underachieving. So I'm wondering, too, if McDonald is the right coach to help them turn it around and have a better 2025.
I don't think you're alone in wondering that. I am with you, and I suspect a lot of the Miami fandom is there, too. And Brox, you kill me, man. I I had my cursor over his plus sign, and it disappeared right from under me. So we'll go with Aaron Jones and DeAndre Swift. I got you a Minnesota and a Chicago. So hopefully I'm still good in your eyes.
Well, DeAndre Swift is not going to be the long-term running back for the Chicago Bears. He's into the final year of his contract. I think he's going to have a great bounce-back season now that he has a real offensive line to work with. He's not a great goal line back. He's a very shifty outside runner type of guy that doesn't prefer to run in between the blocks, and I think that will work out just fine. I think a lot of people were talking how much Ben Johnson doesn't like DeAndre Swift. He got him traded and all that, but I don't think there's anything that merits that. Swift is in the final year. They didn't get the rookie running back they wanted, so he'll be fine as an RB2 every week in fantasy.
Yeah, I think so as well, and so that's you can see since I've prioritized wide receivers, I'm now looking for volume here as my top two running backs, and then we'll go for some upside afterward. So these to me are high floor plays. They're not necessarily sexy picks. In fact, they're permanently unsexy picks. But if they can deliver 12 to 16 points a game for me, that's really all that I want from my top running backs at this point, particularly having paid the premium for Jalen Hurts and then having some really, really good high scoring wide receivers on this team.
I also just realized I took Jalen Waddle after I already drafted Tyreek Hill 4 rounds earlier. Whoops. I never like having two wide receivers from the same offense.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, that leads me into my next question to you. Last year, in my 10-team Redraft PPR league, which is a home league that I commission, I drafted a lot of Detroit Lions, and I did not mean it to happen that way. It just sort of happened. Mm-hmm. So I got Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then David Montgomery. So I got 4 key Lions for that offense. I love deploying both of their running backs because it was amazing for every week fantasy value. So, Jeff, as far as drafting too many of the same player from one team, like I did here with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, what do you think about that strategy? Is there enough upside to making it worth your while, or do the same bye weeks and downsides of a bad week, can that crush your team?
Well, they certainly can, you certainly can be crushing. I think if you have a lot of players from one team, you're not necessarily going to be a 13, 12 win fantasy team. You're going to take your lumps every once in a while. I tend to diversify. I mean, I'm a crisis management and risk consultant in real life, so I try to mitigate and reduce risk and manage it as I move along from day to day, and I treat that with the fantasy teams as well. But if you've got players from a really good offense, such as Detroit last season, that'll work out well for you. And also going back to just going and getting your guys and being having players that you can cheer for, your team's players, if you have a little bit of a surplus of those, because those are your guys and that's your team. That may not win your league, but you're going to have a lot of fun with it, and that is. For, in this case, 9 of the 10 of us, that's what we're going to get out of the season, because only 1 of the 10 of us, if this were a real league, is going to win the championship. And in other leagues, obviously, the math is even harder. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, let's make your next 2 picks, and
do we do a tight end or no?
I'll hit you with the next question as soon as you get these picks in.
Okay. Ooh, got 7 seconds. Better panic pick. Okay. I don't like that pick, but I had to pick somebody.
Jonnu Smith is your 9-10 or 10-9, excuse me. Your 9-10. Well, I'll get back to you with a question about him later as well. Yeah. Followed up with Matthew Golden. I'd say that's fine as a 10th round pick. Yeah. So Rafi69 Bomb asks a burning question. How can people love Puka Nacua, love Devontae Adams, but also not even love Matthew Stafford? We love Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, as well as Joe Burrow. What's the difference? So I'll start by saying Matthew Stafford is in the twilight of his career. He's beat up from his Lions days. He's being held together by metaphorical duct tape and bubble gum. He's still got a terrific arm when he's healthy and on the field, but I fear that one more hit, and that's going to be the end of his career, whereas Joe Burrow has taken quite a beating with some bad offensive lines as well, but he's younger, and he's far more talented in my eyes, like this generation's Dan Marino. Jeff, what do you have to say would you answer this question, and do you agree with me on that?
I would, particularly, as a dynasty guy, obviously we take someone like Burrow over someone like Stafford at any point. Those two come up in the same conversation. And I do think that Burrow being a little younger and being behind a steadier kind of offensive line is probably a better bet here. But if I were looking, particularly if this were in Superflex, and I'm looking at Matthew Stafford, and I'm hearing the same kind of hate everybody else is, and look, I mean, he is a mannequin behind the line of scrimmage. He is not going to escape very many rushes if they get through to him. But this dude can still throw for over 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns in this passing offense with Puka Nacua, with Devontae Adams, who has the opportunity to be more like vintage Devontae Adams. And so I do have some more love for Stafford, not so much on the dynasty side and not necessarily so much here in one QB. Although if he were my second QB, I'd be okay with that. And so I do have a little bit more love. But if you asked me to choose between the threesome of Puka, Adams, and Stafford, or Higgins, Burrow, and Chase, I'm taking the Bengals.
Yeah, absolutely. I would take the Bengals in this day and age over anybody on the Rams as well. And I'll be honest with you, too. I love Devontae Adams' outlook this year, replacing Cooper Kupp, not necessarily in a slot, but just as a second wide receiver, period. Because, yeah, he's kind of past his prime at this point. He's not as fast as he used to be, but he still runs his routes really well. I think he's going to develop great chemistry with Matthew Stafford, as opposed to having to deal with Aaron Rodgers just running the same predictable routes over and over again. Yeah. Now, I don't love Devontae Adams, but if he has to be my second or third wide receiver on my fantasy team, I'm thrilled. But at the same time, I don't want to have to depend on Matthew Stafford as a QB1 because for the reasons we were just talking about, he doesn't have the wheels anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here.
So let's see what you go with next.
We'll talk about John in a second. I actually hate that pick I made. It was just kind of the panic pick because of the timer. We'll get to that here in a second. All of Arthur Smithdom is problematic from a fantasy standpoint. So let's pick up a second QB here.
You just grabbed Kyler Murray at the 11-10.
And let's take Zach Charbonnet, who has standalone value, even as the second every week standalone value is the second running back there in Seattle.
I like that because he's a Hail Mary flex play when Ken Walker is healthy, because you never know when Charbonnet is just going to be given a garbage time touchdown or just a change of pace touchdown if Ken Walker has to miss like 2 plays because he fell on his wrist wrong or something like that.
Yeah, or he just simply broke through the line or went around the edge and picked up a 20-yarder. I mean, that's something the Charbonnet can do. He's the more efficient of the two runners. And so, and Clint Kubiak loves to run the ball, so there might actually be even more of an opportunity there. And, we're in PPR here, but if you happen to be playing in a PP1D format, that's point per first down, which I think is a really cool format. I'm just now getting into that this year myself. Charbonnet was much more efficient at picking them up than Walker was. He had 32 first downs and 135 attempts instead of 28 and 153, which is what Walker had last season.
Yeah, maybe I'll play in a points per first down league someday. I don't know if I can be convinced into converting into that, but if I like it enough and if it grows in popularity, heck yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, I got a group of guys. We're trying it out this year. We're trying to smash several concepts together. So we have dynasty, best ball, short benches, point per first down, and tight end premium, and we've just kind of thrown all of it together into one league and to see what happens.
Totally. So before I ask you about Jonnu, because I'm not thrilled with Jonnu either, so I'm just going to stall on that question. So Andrea Staislowski asks us, Superflex League, keeper Kyler Murray in the first, A.J. Brown in the second, Josh Jacobs in the fourth, Ken Walker in the fifth, Mark Andrews in the sixth, C.J. Stroud in the eighth, Jameson Williams in the 10th. Keep one player. That is quite the motley crew to pick from. I think you have to go J-Mo in the 10th. He just seems like he's the best value. You agree with me?
I do, absolutely. I would rule out Murray, and I would rule out Murray right off the bat. If Superflex, Stroud in the 8th is a possibility. You're just getting pure passing there, so he'd have to be your second quarterback, and I don't know if I'd want to keep a second quarterback if it were him. If it were Murray in the 8th as a second quarterback, I would be more inclined to do that. So to me, J-Mo is got the upside. 10th round pick, you get all your others. That's who I would keep.
I have to agree with that as well, which might blow the minds of some Superflex fanatics that might be like, oh, but it's Superflex. You got to care about all the quarterbacks. But believe it or not, there is such a thing as overvaluing quarterbacks in Superflex too.
Yeah, you don't have to play a quarterback in that second spot. It's helpful, but it's not always the best move.
Ain't that the truth? Let's see here. I'm going to go, what the heck? Let's go Dalton Kincaid for the heck of it, because we've got some flex spots, and I love me some tight ends more than ever these days. So let's finally get to that Jonnu Smith question. So you grabbed him in the 9th round as your 10th pick, as a panic pick, as your first tight end off the board. Jonnu Smith, I'm guessing, is going to be given a lot of like end-around goal line carries because that's what Arthur Smith likes to do with him. Yeah. What does this mean for Pat Freiermuth's volume, and is Aaron Rodgers going to value one tight end over the other?
Well, the way Arthur Smith likes to work, that 4th tight end is going to be the one that actually catches the touchdown passes. So regardless of who Aaron Rodgers favors there, I would, even though I just took him in that round, I'd actually rather have any of the tight ends that have gone since then than him. I just happened to be, he was the one that my cursor was over when I panic picked. I don't like any of the Steelers tight ends from a fantasy standpoint. They may do great from a real football standpoint, but just knowing who, I'm up again, just knowing who might be the guy that.
Ooh, auto pick.
Yeah,
Dallas Goedert.
Right. Well, Dallas Goedert is still a better tight end than the one I took in the 9th round.
Agreed.
So I'm actually okay with that auto pick. So yeah, Arthur Smith to me is definitely not a fantasy football manager's best friend. He is certainly one who will do as he will. I do think Jonnu does get some rushing touchdowns, which helps. Freiermuth and the other tight ends won't get that. But just predicting which tight end is the one who runs the pattern that gets the 4-yard pass from Rodgers, that's just a headache I don't want.
I have to agree completely with that. I saw that when you were pointing your fingers down on the screen to indicate that the value is going way down. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to happen with that Steelers offense. And being that we're predicting that Aaron Rodgers might be in the final year of his career with the Steelers as he signed that 1-year contract, does he finish a full season at this point? I'm not saying we need to start predicting injuries or whether or not somebody's going to get benched, but I just don't know if Aaron Rodgers has it to make Mike Tomlin satisfied, because their backup quarterbacks do not look that good either. I liked Will Howard's potential before Rodgers got signed, but are they going to give Will Howard some snaps this year?
I think they're going to believe that Rodgers is their best shot at winning, and I think that's still going to be what's important to Mike Tomlin, whether he cares about that long streak of over 500 seasons or not, whether he cares about a first-round playoff exit as the 7th seed again or not. I think Rodgers still gives them the best chance of winning. So as long as he is still upright and still has any modicum of passion left in the game, I think he's going to be the starting quarterback. So the answer to your question, Evan, as long as he is healthy, if we can fiat health into this equation, Rodgers will play every game, finish out the season. I did, as you did, like Will Howard a lot better until Rodgers was signed, and then he plummeted down my dynasty rankings because he is now a practice squad question mark, and knowing that they will need a new QB1 next season, there's a chance he remains in a QB3 kind of role as long as he's on that contract, or he bounces from practice squad to practice squad to practice squad.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be bad news for Will Howard as well, because to me, he's a project quarterback that needs to develop behind the right guy, and I don't know if developing behind Aaron Rodgers is going to be the right thing for his career. I don't know the Steelers even to develop quarterbacks. They tend to get the guys they want out of the gate, like Ben Roethlisberger they drafted, and they run that offense pretty much like an offense that's designed for Neil O'Donnell. Like, they do not change that much for this particular offensive style. So Will Howard definitely fits that mold, but whether or not he's NFL caliber, I don't know. That remains to be seen, Jeff.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're going to get to see that this year at all.
Gosh, let's go with the Jets defense.
Yeah.
Why not?
This is where I let the number of rounds get to. I should have picked up another running back in there somewhere, but I was in my head, I'm still in 22 to 25 round drafts. So I have plenty of time to go chasing some of the running backs I like later in the draft. But now I've had to pick a kicker and a defense instead. So
in theory, that's
scoring rules.
In theory, that's what the waiver wire is for, right?
Yeah, I usually actually don't pick a kicker or a defense at this stage. If we were drafting this for real, and you would allow me as commissioner of this league, I would pick probably 2 running backs here and just wait until we got closer to the season to see what happens with those guys. They'd be higher upside guys to see what their situation becomes. And then when the time comes, I'll start streaming kickers and defenses. But my preference would be to actually do position players here and just wait. That some leagues won't allow that.
Yeah, that's true. You can always grab them later, as that's the type of value that kickers and defensive/special teams have in redraft leagues. So I want to get to Brain Burst question here. The Brain Burst Scott Fishbowl draft is on its last round. Have your drafts finished? What picks do you think you got the best value on? So Brain Burst, we kind of touched upon that in the first 10 minutes of the show. So when the show ends tonight, go ahead, scroll back to the first 10 minutes of the show. You'll find what we have to say about Jeff's team so far right away. I didn't show mine, but if you look on my Blue Sky account, I did share my Scott Fishbowl team on there. I like what I did with it, so you check it out when you get the chance, my friend. So, yeah, Nate Paul vote also calls what you just said earlier. That's called the Judkins is going to prison pick strategy. So, you know, he just...
I call it the knucklehead factor, and I do try to avoid those or limit my exposure to those. I've been kind of willing to give Stefan Diggs a pass on whatever weirdness that was on the boat. But yeah, Judkins issues, Rashee Rice's issues, some of those kinds of things have me tuned off to them. And if I can move those for some value, even if it's not value this season, I traded Rice for a couple of 2028 picks in one of my leagues. And while I got eviscerated for that online, I like the value of that. And I like what I can do with those picks in terms of trading for other assets in the season. And then I've removed that headache from my roster. I said, get guys you can cheer for. I'm cheering for Rashee Rice in life. I can't cheer for him as a player right this second.
The one thing I also want to state for the record, we don't know if Judkins is going to prison yet. He is innocent until proven guilty. Doesn't look good from a 10,000-foot view, but yeah, we just want to state for that for the record as well. So, Jeff, I will ask you with the same question that I ask everybody on this show. Now that the mock draft has completed, looking at everybody's teams here, who do you feel had the best draft?
Who do I feel had the best draft? Well, I really love. I can't see the name. It's the bear logo here. Is that Vince or what's the name here? Vince. I really like Vince build based on the style that I have. He's got his hero wide receiver. He got Achane, who I think is probably the running back 3 or 4 in redraft this year. He got him there. Jonathan Taylor is outstanding. In an offense that's not very good, but he's going to get his workload. Adams, I think, is going to have a pretty good season. Kamara is always good for, as long as he stays healthy, he's always good for a ton of touches. That offense is going to be terrible, so he's going to have to carry that. And then we've got a rolling list of some wide receivers that have some upside. Njoku is fine as a tight end, and then to get two running quarterbacks that far down in Fields and May, that's some good stuff right there. So good job, Vince. I like that build.
So that leads me, coincidentally, that leads me into my next question for you, Jeff. So 2 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback redraft league. I am not a fan of drafting 2, whether they're back-to-back or separate, just because I prefer to just take just the 1 quarterback that I need, and the waiver wire, chances are, is going to have plenty of QB2s and dart throw quarterbacks that you can start in a pinch if you really need to. So what do you feel about drafting 2 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback redraft league? Are you in favor of that, or do you prefer to do what I say and just take the one that you need and just wait for the next one?
I think it depends on who's available and your desire to handle risk, and also you're welcome, Vince. And also look at what your league mates are doing. If a lot of league mates are taking 2 and you decide to go waiver wire route, you're kind of banking on somebody getting hurt and a spot and some other starter coming in that you can take. So if there's a run on the quarterbacks, I might be more inclined. I took Kyler Murray in what looks like the 10th round or so from the way I see the screen here. He's got running upside. I don't know that I want him as my first quarterback. But I thought that's a fine compliment to Jalen Hurts. Assuming they don't have the same off week. I didn't look. I don't typically deal with bye weeks as an issue when I draft. But if I pick 2 quarterbacks at the same bye week, that would have been dumb. But I'll blame that on 30 seconds if that is in fact what I just did. So I'm okay with it. As you can see, I did it, with more time to think about it than 15 seconds or 30 seconds. Would I have picked something different there? I should have picked a running back knowing that there were only 15 positions to take and 13 of them were only available for position players. But my head was still locked into 20 to 25 picks and I had time. So if I had known if my brain had calculated the formats in the draft correctly, I would have gone with a running back there instead of Murray. But I don't mind it as a strategy, though.
So coincidentally, in my 10-team redraft PPR home league last year, Jalen Hurts was my first quarterback off the board too. But then as we were getting in these later rounds, I saw that the rookie Jaden Daniels was still on the board, and the value was just so good, I just caved in against what I typically do, and I drafted a second quarterback. And I thought, okay, well, I can always just see which one of these quarterbacks does well for whether it's a short while or a long while and just trade one of them to get a better position player. So I thought I was going to be trading Jaden Daniels because I expected the Commanders to struggle with Dan Quinn as their head coach and Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator. I was dead wrong. It was Jalen Hurts I ended up trading.
And that's the other thing to always be thinking about. If your league has trades in it, use that power. And if you have a really strong asset that you can't play on a weekly basis, in a 1 QB league, obviously you can only play one of them at a time. So that gives you some powerful leverage. It also means he wasn't on somebody else's roster for free. So if someone else isn't running Jaden Daniels at you or AJ Brown or Jalen Hurts at you without you getting something in return. So there's also that kind of an aspect to it. If you understand what your league mates like to do and you know that the guy who's won the championship for 3 years in a row is drafting after you and he doesn't have a quarterback yet, it's not a bad strategy to take the best quarterback off the board, even though that now gives you 2.
Yeah, and I ended up getting Devontae Smith in exchange for Jalen Hurts straight up. Reason I did that is just because I needed some wide receiver depth, and I figured that would be kind of a safer value just in case the shareholder of Devontae Smith had a better team than expected. Unfortunately, this team owner drafted Justin Tucker in the 4th round last year, so that was probably not setting them up for success, but no. Coincidentally, they were also the last place team in the league, but hey, at least... the important thing is the fun we had along the way, right?
Yeah. If you're going to draft a kicker, please wait until the last couple of rounds.
Yes. Otherwise, I will judge you. Even if you're somebody that I love, please wait until the last couple of rounds to draft your kickers and defensive slash special teams. There's no reason to be drafting them any earlier than the final 2 rounds. So, Jeff, let's take a look at my team here as well, being that I am the host of the show. I went a little different than I typically do in a format like this, where I was a lot more running back heavy and tight end heavy. I usually don't draft 3 tight ends, and I usually try to grab more than 4 wide receivers in a format like this. From a general standpoint, with everybody I drafted, critique my team. What do you think of it?
I do think, I tend to undervalue or devalue tight ends relative to everything else. So I think 3 tight ends was a bit overkill here, and would probably have stuck with, honestly, with Bowers. I might have actually been willing to just stream the position from that point forward, either for his bye week or if there was an injury to him. I mean, you only have to play one of those. So it works kind of like quarterback in the sense that you don't have to have 2 of them on the roster. So I might have been more inclined to use the Ingram and Kincaid picks. I don't mind them in and of themselves, but I might have been more inclined to pick up some wide receivers there to balance this roster out a little bit. I do like the running back picks you have. I do have volume concerns about Williams and Cook. And I just have general offense concerns with Pacheco in the sense that the Kansas City just doesn't necessarily have to have him do much of anything in order to win. And then I think Williams is a great pick down there at what I think is the 10th or 11th round. My glasses can't see that from this angle. he could very well be a very high upside player at that as the Cowboys' #1 rusher if he shows any of the flashes of brilliance that he's had at various times in his career before injuries. If he's fully back. Same with Dobbins, I think below that. Another potentially excellent league-winning kind of pick that's a great value to have in those kinds of rounds when you've already got two solid starters in Williams and Cook and a solid flex running back play in Pacheco. You can gamble on some upside on the way down there. And then Tootin, same, if he happens to be lightning in a bottle, you got him for cheap. Otherwise, you have to fetch him off the waiver wire when everybody else is interested in him.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see Bashal Tutin as well. I am not confident in Bashal Tutin as a rookie this year on the Jacksonville Jaguars, being that he will be sharing that backfield with Travis Etienne as well as Tank Bigsby, and I don't have a lot of confidence that Tutin will be NFL ready off the bat. I think he needs at least 2 seasons to get acquainted with the NFL level. So I also made a YouTube short on with my Fantasy Now Plus work on another channel. If I had to oversimplify Bashal Tutin's prospect profile, he's DeAndre Swift, but he doesn't have the same talent right now. He needs to develop. He's really, really fast, but he also is another running back that prefers to run around the blocks instead of in between them, trusting his blockers. He doesn't have enough weight to be a dependable blocker, and he's not a good pass catcher. So what do you think will happen with Bashal Tutin with that Jacksonville backfield making a lot of people nervous? Do you think he has a positive trajectory in the NFL with Chad Morton as his running backs coach?
I am trying to view him and some of the other, high talent, but NFL raw kinds of prospects more like I would a tight end prospect than a running back prospect. I don't see Tutin as someone who's going to peak in year 1 or 2. I think you're spot on that this is a year 3, year 4, a slower developer kind of running back. So if you kind of treat him in the mindset that you would treat like a Tyler Warren or a Colston Loveland as a tight end who those may be not the best examples. I think they will actually do very well in year 1, but others of the tight ends, Fannin or Gadsden, who are going to be more like projects that will develop later. Then I think Tutin, particularly Dynasties, is a great pick. I have concerns in Jacksonville, but I don't see that the regime there is necessarily wedded to either Etienne or Bigsby. And so the opportunity is there if he can excel and take that either not necessarily this year, but certainly in year 2 and year 3. So I do see a pretty bright future there, but I also see lots of other possibilities that aren't anywhere near as bright. The range of outcomes is wide.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. Rafi69 Bomb also asks, what are your thoughts of ETN making a comeback in a Bucky Irving type of role with Liam Cohen? That role seems to fit his skill set perfectly. If ETN can stay healthy, I can absolutely see it. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm higher on ETN than a lot of folks are for almost that exact reason. He is exactly the kind of running back that Cohen seems to be able to use and utilize. And if his past struggles were in part health related and as they're cleared up, he's got, to me, more upside of any of the 3, including Tutin. And it's just simply because I don't think Tutin will see the field enough to capitalize on the upside that he has as a fantasy football asset.
I agree. I think they're going to need to working him in very slowly. And if Jacksonville is not a playoff caliber team right away, that's when I can see Tutin getting like some intense volume of carries in the last like 4 or 5 weeks of the season, fooling everybody into thinking he's going to be the lead back right away when he might not be. But that just remains to be seen. I don't want to get too clairvoyant here for some of these running backs. So I want to change gears here a little bit, Jeff. I wanted to ask you about Dalton Kincaid as a tight end. So he's been struggling mighty hard in his first couple of seasons with the Buffalo Bills. He had 2 separate knee injuries last season, too, that he played through. There seems to be a lot of Buffalo Bills that have been trying to play through injuries, and they just have to try to play through them. They don't want to take time off, but then the coaching staff regrets rushing them back, like what happened with Keon Coleman last year with his wrist injury. So Dalton Kincaid also seemed to be having a difficult time building chemistry with Josh Allen. Does this get fixed for Kincaid in year number 3?
I would hope so for him. I love the talent that he has, and he's in such a great situation with Josh Allen in that offense, and there's a lack of a true alpha kind of receiver that would be the predominant target for Allen. That the opportunity, I think, is there. Unfortunately, Dawson Knox is still there, and he's got even more familiarity with the situation, and he seems to be the tight end they truck out there when they absolutely have to have this catch right this moment from the tight end. That seems to be his role. So I'm concerned that Kincaid just simply isn't, even if he's fully healed, he's not going to have the opportunity to be a tight end one in fantasy football. Not to the level that I think of an Arthur Smith type situation where there is just mathematically impossible for him to be a tight end one. I just don't know that the opportunities will present themselves just because of the way that Allen spreads the ball around and the fact that Knox is having, or Kincaid is having to share the field with Knox, even in 2 tight end sets. It's a situation I wouldn't necessarily want to invest in a 1 QB league. If I'm in a tight end premium league and I can get him for cheap, yeah, I'll take a chance on him. Absolutely.
I have been teasing our resident Buffalo Bills fan, Lou Brunson. I said to him that the Buffalo Bills are the Green Bay Packers of the AFC East, in which they don't seem to have a top pass catcher in that offense. It's just whoever Josh Allen can get the ball to, except Josh Allen is far more talented than Jordan Love right now, where Jordan Love seems to have the same struggles finding that top target for whoever just steps up in that Packers offense, where before they drafted Matthew Golden like you did in the 10-1 over here, they have just been trying to get the ball in the hands of all kinds of people between Tucker Kraft and Jaden Reed and Christian Watson when he can stay healthy, and then guys like Romeo Doubs can't seem to stay on the field as well with injuries, and then Dontavian Wicks comes out of nowhere and becomes an amazing fantasy darling. So my question for you is about Matthew Golden here. As a year 1 first-round rookie wide receiver, what impact do you see him having for the Green Bay Packers as far as fantasy value goes? Does he need time to develop as well, or is he going to hit right away?
I suspect he won't hit right away. I would have some expectations in check here, but I think, an 800-yard season is well within the possibility, and I think that would be considered good unless you have him as your wide receiver 1 or 2, in which case that's not going to be good enough. In this build I have here, I'd already picked 5 wide receivers to that point, so I don't really need him to do anything early in the season for me, as long as he builds over time to that. There's obviously a great opportunity to be the top pass catcher in Green Bay because there is no obvious answer there with the health issues, as you mentioned, with some of those guys. And with the Jordan Love and the line and the running offense they have. So it's kind of a patchwork quilt approach. So there's definitely an opportunity for him to step in. I just don't know that he is going to be able to do that right off the bat. I will say, though, one of the things that has impressed me most about him, and it was right at draft day, he was there in Green Bay, and once he got drafted, he spent the next several hours mingling with the fans and taking pictures down there in that venue. And that's the sort of thing that you don't typically see from supremely talented players who are first-round multimillionaires in the NFL. So that sort of a character thing, I made a note of mentally, that this is one of those guys that is going to put in the work. He's going to put in the study. He's humble enough to accept criticism, and he wants to be there genuinely, not just as a professional football player, but as a person. He wants to be in Green Bay. And those kinds of intangibles, to me, separate him from a bunch of other people that could be taken in this range of fantasy drafts.
I think that's a brilliant answer, and yeah, we'll have to see how it all works out for the Packers. So, unfortunately, we are starting to run out of time here, so we're going to start to wrap things up here. I want to also talk about some tremendous companies that have been doing great things with Optimus Fantasy, but the first thing I want to talk about is our Optimus Fantasy Discord server. If you're not in our Discord community yet, what are you doing with your life? I'm serious. Yeah. But this is where the real action happens 24/7, and it's completely free to join. We've built an incredible community where you can get everything you need to dominate your leagues all year long. We're talking best ball advice, DFS lineups, live NFL draft coverage with real-time updates, deep dynasty discussions where we debate rookie values and trade strategies, and some of the sharpest NFL betting insights you'll find anywhere. But here's the thing. It's not just about the content. It's about the community. You've got thousands of fantasy fanatics in there sharing advice, breaking news, celebrating wins, and yes, commiserating over those brutal bad beats. Whether it's 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., someone's always in there ready to talk ball. Check out the link in the show description below now. It takes 30 seconds to join. It is completely free, and I guarantee it'll level up your fantasy game. Come hang with us. Also, Fast Draft Fantasy. All right, fantasy fam, let's talk about Fast Draft. They're absolutely revolutionizing the best ball game right now. They just dropped something called the Rabbit, and this is a game changer. We're talking about a true 15-round best ball draft that includes quarterbacks, no kickers, no defenses, just the positions that matter. And here's the kicker, pun mildly intended. You've got a 20-second clock per pick, which means you can knock out an entire draft in about 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Plus, they've got a $50,000 prize pool up for grabs. And because you're a part of the Optimus Fantasy, Fast Draft is hooking you up with a $50 deposit match when you use promo code Optimus. That's OPTIMUS. So head over to fastdraft.app, get that deposit match, and start crushing some rabbit drafts. Trust me, once you try that 20-second clock, you'll be addicted. Also, the Fantasy Football Expo is less than 3 weeks away, people. Can you believe it? Time is running out to secure your spot. The Fantasy Football Expo is the premier event where you get to meet your favorite analysts from around the industry, participate in exclusive meet and greet sessions, watch live industry drafts, and hang out with thousands of fantasy football fanatics for an entire weekend at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This is where the magic happens. Join the Optimus crew in Canton, Ohio, August 8th through 10th for live meet and greets, golf tournaments, cornhole competitions, epic parties, expert panels, and so much more. Weekend experience tickets are almost gone, so you need to act fast. Head over to the Fantasy Football Expo right now and use our promo codes to save. Optimus-2025 gets you $10 off any gold, silver, or VIP package. Ultimate-Optimus-2025 saves you $25 on the Ultimate Fan Experience. And listen, this includes that Friday exclusive meet and greet ticket where you get up and close and personal with your favorite fantasy football analysts. These are extremely limited. Seriously, folks, less than 3 weeks. Don't miss out on the fantasy football event of the year. And let me bring us both back on. There we are. So, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure finally getting to meet you.
Yes, Evan, thank you so much for having me. Hopefully you are at the expo. I will be there. So if we are, let's be sure we run into each other.
I sincerely wish I could make it to the expo this year. Unfortunately, I don't have the money to go this year, but my goal is for 2026. So it'll be there waiting for me when I'm ready.
Very good. Very good.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. I'd like to thank my guest, Jeff Blaylock, one more time for joining us this evening. If you haven't already, check out footballguys.com/articles and be on the lookout for Jeff's articles. Jeff, tell the people what else you have coming up over the next few weeks or months that they should check out.
So I'm also participating in our Campfire series. We are looking at team vibes, sleepers, and busts for all 32 teams. I've been a regular contributor to those. Those come out more or less every day. We're about halfway through the league now, and we'll finish that series up here in a couple of weeks. Should have another player profile coming up on another quarterback who has not necessarily been known as a runner, but who I believe will be unlocked as a runner. He had no designed runs last year. I don't think that will happen again. And we have some Dynasty content that will be coming out as well. And, of course, check out the Football Guys magazine. We have almost sold out the production run. So please get over to footballguys.com and check that out. And after you've joined Evan's Discord server, join ours as well. We have lots of fun. And as he said, it is all about community for us. You'll find us in there answering questions, debating our selections, our picks, our strategies, or defending ourselves from the takes that everyone thinks is terrible. And some of them are, of course, or at least they don't live very long. I had a take on a player that lived a whole 2 days before I had to pull it down because, yeah, it happens. Happens to all of us. So thank you. But again, all about community. Join these Discords, get in there. And if you happen to see Jeff B typing and you think it's Jeff Bell, it turns out to be me. My apologies in advance.
I can verify that the Football Guys Discord server is also a tremendous place to meet great people like Jeff Blaylock as well. And be sure you check out that Football Guys magazine as well. It's jam-packed with a lot of tremendous information. I also want to thank everybody one more time for who joined the mock draft this evening. It is darn near impossible to do a mock draft show without folks like you mocking with us. Next week, we will be doing a late one quarterback dynasty PPR rookie draft. Quite a short one this time. Joining me next week for that one is one of the main faces for Fantasy Now Plus. And the only hint I'm going to drop for all of you is that he really likes professional wrestling on the team. I'll let you guess who that might be. If you would like to join us for that draft, please join the Optimus Fantasy Discord server so that you can get first dibs on grabbing a draft spot. Coming to you live on Optimus Fantasy. Have a great night. I will see you all next week. Take care.